Welcome to Headshots by Peggy Presents. I'm Peggy, and I am so excited because we have Blair and Brian, the Casting About guys, with me today, and you know that's always an amazing show.
Oh, see, that's too much pressure now. So there you just build it up.
Built it up. It's like when all your friends say, have you seen this movie? And like, your schedule is busy and it takes you like 2 weeks to get there. And then it sucks because the buildup was so amazing.
That's what this is going to be. Our expectations should be as low as possible. Hey, everybody, thanks for coming. Sorry to waste your time.
Don't mess it up, Brian. Just don't. Come on.
No, actually, you guys have been on the show. This is your third time on my show, and you have been never disappointed. In fact, just grab some coffee and some snacks because this isn't going to be your 20-minute podcast. I can tell you right now.
No, I apologize for that right away. I'm sorry.
So for my listeners who, just started acting and have no idea what Casting About is, why don't we start off with talking about Casting About, and then I have some questions for you.
Awesome.
And then we can just go wherever the universe leads us.
We're just gonna yes and the whole
thing.
Yes.
All right, so what's Casting About is why that's not why I'm friends with Brian. The beginning of our friendship was kind of the beginning of Casting About. He was the across the hall neighbor guy, who was a nice guy. And Brian and his wife were actually taking care of me during this dark time when I got like dumped by an agent and my heart broken all in the same week, basically.
Not by the agent, it was his heart was broken by somebody else, not an agent.
And it was a dark time. And so the nice neighbors across the hall would like bring me food and, stuff. But no, it was that, and we've told the story before, but it was that agent that decided to cut their client list in half and said, see ya. And I had to start over, basically. And I had done kind of nothing for the last year except sit around and wait for that agent to call me. And I had to figure out, all right, who do I know in town? And I'd been working as an actor in New York for a bunch of years, and then I came to LA and I was doing some TV and some commercials, and I kind of had to start over, find the casting directors who knew me and where are they now, and let them know I'm still around. And I became obsessed with this idea. I went into revenge mode, as I say, and I had this database I started keeping of casting directors, who's casting what in town. I was just doing TV in LA at the time, and all my friends started saying, hey, this is valuable information. I need to know who's casting what. I need to know where they are. And I need to know this associate I worked with, where are they now? And we're going to talk about relationships. I mean, that's what this business is. And I was trying to keep track of my relationships. And friends started saying, hey, you should do something with this. It's data that I would pay for. It's information I'd pay for. So Brian and I went out for burritos. And out in Burbank, right?
Burbank, yep. Sharky's in Burbank was the birthplace of Casting About, as it were.
And Brian is. I'm going to talk about you. You can just smile and look nice. He's an internet guy, but he also comes from marketing and PR. So he started asking me all the right questions about how do actors market themselves and how they build relationships. And my answer was like, well, they don't really. They just wait for auditions to come in. And so we built this thing called Casting About. And basically, it was just this database of casting directors that I was going to use for myself. And people started signing up, and it started growing. And we hired some researchers to help out. And then a couple years in, we got to talk to the folks at Breakdown Services, which is the Actors Access people. And what we realized, kind of in hindsight, is that Actors Access and Breakdown, when you submit yourself for a job, it's a sales tool. You are trying to sell yourself for this job. And they had a really good sales tool. And what we had built was a marketing tool, which is about how do you market, how do you build relationships to make the sales easier. And they seemed to fit. So we actually became a part of Breakdown Services. And for the last 10 years, 11, 12.
It's been at least I mean, there's a pandemic, so everything feels like 100 years ago now.
Yes. So for the last 100 years, we've been able to kind of peek behind the curtain at Breakdown Services and see how casting directors work and how agents work. And I've learned a ton, both about CastingAbout, and that's changed and grown over the years, but also, my own career, that's changed too. And what I do in the room is even different now because of these relationships. And honestly, I've learned a lot from Brian about that, about marketing and PR and relationships. And then along the way, just for fun, Brian sort of elbowed me one day and said, "Hey, what about her?" And that is now my wife, who's on her own Zoom meeting over there somewhere.
I was gonna say, she's gonna walk through the shot at some point.
Yeah. She's got her MBA in marketing. So now all the questions started coming, how do actors do what they do? And so that's a very long rambling answer to CastingAbout is a marketing tool, right, for actors.
Yeah. And I sometimes, we were talking about this a second ago, but I sometimes feel like CastingAbout is sort of the best kept secret in Hollywood. That we don't put a lot of our budget into marketing. We don't put a lot of our budget into promotion. We're always happy to come out and talk to people about how we think that actors ought to kind of run their business like a business would, where they promote themselves and so on. But the great irony is that that CastingAbout doesn't market in the way that we teach you how to market. It is absolutely true that the acting business, the entertainment business, is a who you know business. It's a business that's based on who you know. In fact, one of the weird things that shocked us, we were talking to a casting director, and he said, in our office, we try, if possible, to make 80% of the people we bring in are going to be people we already know. So we try to get about 20 to 25% new people that we've never met before. And that was such a really interesting statistic, because if you don't know a casting director, if you don't have an existing relationship with a casting director, the odds of your getting called in have gone way, 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 way down. And so one of the weird things that actors do is they're like, I got to submit more. And, because I want to get roles. So I just need to submit more. I need my agent to submit me more. I need my manager to submit me more. And if you really think about a relationship-based business, that's too late in the process. So what CastingAbout tries to do is get you the information you need to build and maintain the relationships with people before the auditions come in. So you sort of start the whole process. And frankly, it's the thing that you should be spending most of your time doing, because what you'd ideally, nobody wants to audition, everybody wants to book, right? And the way you book is by having a strong existing relationship with a casting director who already knows what they're going to get before they get it. So if you do this right, you could audition less and book more. And how cool would that be?
Yeah. It's probably the one biggest thing that I've had, younger actors ask me, what have you learned, or what's the greatest lesson you've learned in your career? And it's what you just said, Brian. It's that I spent so much of my time and money and energy on trying to just get the audition. And often it was an audition with a stranger, and if I could go back and do it again, I would flip it. I would do it totally differently. I would take all that time and money and energy and focus on building relationships with the kind of storytellers that I know I'm going to work with, over time. Ultimately, I think that gets you a lot further faster.
How I met you guys is Merrick was coming. We were still living in San Diego. This was like 6 years ago. And he would drive up to your workshops, and he was always talking about, all the things you said. And my mantra or whatever with my headshots is your headshot should be one of the biggest parts of your marketing strategy. And, that's your first impression. That's, what's going to catch people's eye. And it felt like for so long, no one was teaching actors how to market themselves. And to me, it just seemed obvious. You're an actor, like your job is to say, hey, look at me.
Right.
And
go ahead. Sorry.
You live and work in Hollywood, and it's all about who you know. We all say that. It's not what you know, it's who you know. But you're not out there networking. You're not out there marketing yourself. You're not out there doing anything that's effective. And I was just like, and so I remember the first time I went to one of your workshops, I was like, can a non-actor go? Like, I was like really scared I was going to get turned away at the door.
Yeah,
like,
no, we would not let you in.
Get out of here.
Yes.
And so I was like, I'm just gonna like come in and like just keep my head down and just take notes and not.
There's a secret handshake, Peggy, and
Yes, I know. I didn't
ask
know. I
Merrick.
thought like,
Maybe he'll tell you how
I'm
to
not
do it.
in the
but-
club. I'm not an actor, but I want to go. And I went and I was just like, these guys are awesome. And of course, Merrick uses, CastingAbout, and he's always, but he came from an engineering background. So like spreadsheets and,
Mhm. Yeah.
records and stuff. That's kind of his thing.
This is what we find. We find that actors who have a background in marketing, actors who have a background in business, actors who are sort of think through things logically, understand that if you want to climb a mountain, the way you climb a mountain is by starting by planning, by getting your gear together, by figuring out your route, by moving forward, and you do it in steps, right? And the first step to climbing the mountain is not actually just jump to the top of the mountain and put a flag at the top of the mountain. That's your long-term goal. Great, we're going to get you there, but the way you get there is by doing things, sort of stepwise along the way. And if you are not known in this business, then sitting at the bar at Schwab's and hoping that a casting director meets you, which is of course the famous story of getting discovered, is not sure. That might work one time, but there is a much more efficient way to do it, and it starts by figuring out who you are, right? So the first thing you do is you figure out, who am I? And that, in terms of what is, as an actor, we are all unique. And I say we, I have to put the caveat on there. I'm not an actor. I'm terrible at acting. I'm a pretty good singer. But for whatever reason, if you point a camera at me, I get weird. I turn into a robot, whatever. Blair, I don't know if I'm pointing the right way, but for me, that's Blair. Blair is your actor. Blair is your, there we go. Blair's your actor. And super good at it. But from an acting standpoint, every actor is unique, right? No matter what, everyone has a unique story to tell. And we talk a lot about story. We're going to keep coming back around to that because we are all storytellers, right? And so the story you tell, the way you tell the story, that's your superpower. That's what, that is a unique thing that you can do in a way that no one else can do it. And so the first step to figuring out, how am I going to market myself? How am I going to attack this town? How am I going to break in? The first step is, what do I bring to the table? What are the unique things that I bring to the table? And so many actors spend, especially young actors, spend their time trying to be somebody else. Part of that's part of your training, right? It's you're looking up to the greats, you're learning from other people and so on. But the thing, don't lose track of the fact that you are a unique individual and that the way you come to story is going to be a unique thing. So I think that's the first step, is who am I? Right?
One of my favorite stories about that is from a casting director. We were actually doing one of the workshops, one of the seminars with a casting director, and talking about how submissions work and showing actors, this is what a casting director sees. This is what 3,000 submissions look like. And we had pulled up the profile of somebody, of an actor, and she had, casting directors, they can see your picture. And if they're interested in the picture, they can actually click a button and see other pictures that are assigned to that representative, in your profile. And so she brought up this, and the screen just filled up. There's like 30 pictures. And all decent looking headshots, and they were, so different. It's like hair up, hair down, brunette, blonde, glasses, no glasses, hat, no hat, lots of different looks. And I understood exactly, this is somebody who says, look, I can do a lot of different things. I'm versatile as an actor. That's a good thing. You can put me in a lot of different situations. But from a marketing perspective, it's well, in the marketing textbooks, it's brand confusion, right? It's who are you? And the casting director actually said, and I'll never forget it, she was looking up at the screen, she goes, okay, I know what's going on here. This person doesn't know who they are, and I don't have time to figure it out for them. So pass. And
Blair and I are like,
yeah, the whole room was kind of like, and people like getting online like right away, like, I got to take down some pictures. But Peggy, when you mentioned headshots, it's funny, when I got out of school, there was this, seminar about acting and as a business, in the last semester in college. And I remember they're talking about, well, make sure you have headshots, and you can even get postcards and send those around, and then, get backstage back in the day and get actors access, whatever it was. And so they talked there was a little mention about like market yourself, but nobody ever talked about what that actually means. And so for most people, that meant I'm going to do a mass mailing. I'm going to send out 300 postcards to every casting director in town. I'm going to have 30 headshots on my profile so that I can appeal to somebody, or, you know, I want to be all things to all people. That's not marketing. That's junk mail, right? That doesn't work. Marketing, and I've learned this from Brian, and I've learned this by looking behind the scenes at Breakdown, and I've learned this by watching how casting directors do what they do. Marketing is about being a lot more specific. And that's hard for actors because they don't want to be typecast and pigeonholed. But it's about figuring out, what are you going to bring to the table? Who are you as an artist? Who are you as a storyteller? What is your unique voice that you have? You know, and you know this from headshots, Peggy. A headshot is not just a pretty shot. It is a reflection of that unique thing, whatever that special thing is that you are, capturing that through the eyes, through the expression, through everything about you, that energy that jumps off the page on a good headshot. What is unique about you? Because you are going to bring that to every single script you come across. I mean, comedy, drama, stage, film, TV, commercials, whatever. You are going to bring this unique thing, right? And figuring out what that is a full-time job in the first place. That's going to, you know, go on for a long, long time. But that should be your job. That should be figuring out. And for, you know, the younger actors, I say, man, you've got to spend a lot of time doing a lot of scenes and figure out which scenes stick. You know, I always say, you some scenes you read it once and you got to memorize. You like can't wait to tell the story. Like bring it on. You know, and other scenes, on paper it sounds like you, like the character is described as you, but it doesn't, like you have trouble memorizing it, and it just feels awkward. And I say, why does one scene like get in your bones and the other scene is like not so much? And spending that time doing as many things as you can, as many different scenes in class, and having people call you to read their script, and what things start to click, and what stories in your life. And I've talked about this a lot because this just resonated so strongly with me. You know, you start to look at the books you read and the music you listen to and the you know, the movies you watch over and over and over again, and all that story in your life. Which ones are you drawn to, and why? You know, and I think if you start to track that stuff, you start to find a through line. And sometimes it's really subtle, but you start to find a connection between, oh my God, I read this book, which reminded me of this movie that I've watched 100 times. And then there was a script I read that and they're all, you know, what does that say about you? What does that say about your voice and who you are as a storyteller? Because then if you can start to figure that out, then you can go to a headshot photographer and not just say, well, I want to wear this shirt with this hair and this lighting. It's not that. Well, you would say, no, here's the story I want to tell. I want to be the guy in the boardroom or the doctor's office or the court or whatever that says, trust me, I will not let you down. I'm that guy, right? I want that picture. I want the, you know, whatever that is, right? Because when I walk in the room, I just, you know, that energy that I bring, let's find how to capture that. And then now that you're capturing yourself, or maybe 2 or 3 different variations of yourself telling a story, now it's obvious that you don't have 30 headshots, or you don't need 30 headshots. You need 2, you know, maybe 3.
Right. And it's easier to evaluate the headshots too, right? When you get back 500 shots and you have to try to sort of narrow it down somehow, it's a lot, you know, now you have a benchmark that you can evaluate your headshots in terms of, it's not about what do I like, or what does my mom like, or what do my friends like, or whatever. It's about, does this tell the story that I tell? Is this something that tells that same story? And if you don't know what that story is, then you're just looking at a bunch of really pretty pictures going, oh, you know, you don't have a way to determine. You end up selecting things on really weird choices. And that's why you see a lot of actors that are out there that just dump up a bunch of headshots, because they're like, I don't know, and so I'm just going to hope for the best. You know, sometimes
the wall, something will stick.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Peggy, how many actors come to you with kind of a specific story that they want to capture, or how many show up and just say, make me look pretty?
So this is something that the pandemic has changed completely about my business. Actors used to always come to me and say, I need an effective headshot. Well, no kidding. What does that mean? So during the pandemic, I started doing a lot of Zoom consultations. I started doing a lot of Clubhouse, you know, stuff like that. And I was like, the thing that I used to do, like when you would walk into my studio, you know, I would talk you through trying to figure out, I actually made a whole program. It's called the Headshot Strategist. And everybody, if you want me to take your pictures, if you want me to do your headshots, you have to sit on Zoom with me beforehand. And we talk about just that, because the camera is going to capture your emotion, period. That's the job of the camera. It's going to capture what you're feeling. And when an actor gets in front of the camera and they're like, oh my God, I hope this headshot works. This is a lot of money. I hope I look good. I hope I don't do that weird smile everybody hates. I hope my eye, that lazy eye doesn't show up. Oh my God. Then those insecurities are going to be captured in your headshot.
Right.
So, and I like what you said, Blair, and this is my version of what you said. And that is, the more specific your headshot is, the more broad it will reach. And actors are horrified of being typecast. But when you have a specific headshot, it actually opens the door for you, because here's what happens. A casting director sees that headshot. They're looking for an attorney. They're looking for what kind of attorney? They're looking for a badass, like down to, you know, and so you have that character completely nailed down. You know who you are. You know how you play that attorney. You know everything about it. You know what your order was at Starbucks on your way into the office this morning. Like, you are in character and you capture that headshot. That is right. That badass attorney, right? So the casting director sees that badass attorney and says, oh, that's absolutely my attorney. But you know what else? I can see this as also being a CEO. Or, you know what? I've got this role over here. See, it opens it up, right? Because you draw them in to a pinpoint, and then they can imagine where else they can put you. Versus throwing spaghetti on the wall, hoping something sticks, and they're like, this is overwhelming. I got 3,000 other images to look at next. So the more specific you get, the more you open yourself up. And I know actors are horrified of that. They don't want to be typecast, but
yeah, can we just dispel the you want to be typecast myth? I mean, here's the thing. So you tell me
2021, you're on YouTube, you're not going to be typecast. It's not even a thing anymore.
Well, and here's the thing, you know, you don't want to be typecast, which means you don't want to work. I mean, so you don't want to work. Is that what it is?
You don't want to keep getting called back in to be a teacher. You don't want to always get paid for working.
When you've got 10 film scripts coming across your desk unsolicited, that is the time to worry about whether you're being typecast or not. When you're trying to break into this business, get typecast. Be as specific as you possibly can.
Well, like, there's something very important about this, because I think actors, I think they're thinking so much about their own career, of course, and I want more and bigger, and don't typecast me. I want to be whatever. But it's a collaborative business, right? And we are not doing this alone. And I think especially at the beginning of your career, let's face it, the truth is we are here to help serve somebody else's story. That's the point. I mean, unless you wrote it and directed yourself, and that's awesome, go do that. But if you want it, but for other jobs that you're going to get paid for, you are being hired to serve somebody else's story, right? So do that. Be a pro. Serve the story in the best way. Bring your authentic voice to their story. That's side note. That's become sort of my mantra in the audition room now, which has helped me.
We gotta spend some time talking about that. Put a pin in that one, Blair.
Yeah, but we'll come back to that.
By the way, the CastingAbout guys built a really great service for marketing that also actually helps you be a better actor.
Yeah, it's amazing. So yes, we will come back to that. But this idea that if you start to serve somebody else's story and you become reliable and you show up and you're a pro and you do it as a certain way, like, oh, I need that go-to like high school teacher, man, you have always come through for me. Great. Well, you are building relationships now and you are being reliable and they are saying, thanks for doing a great job. Now what happens is you actually do have an honest relationship, and casting directors start to do things like, ooh, you know what might be kind of interesting? Like, you know that Blair thing that he does? What if we brought that to this role? Wouldn't that be cool, right? And they start to expand the boundaries themselves. I heard David Rubin once, casting director, now president of the TV Academy. He described what he does, or what casting is one time. I thought it was so great. He said, basically, our job is to take the essence of a character on the page and marry that to the essence of an actor that we know and smush them both together. I don't think he said smush. I think that's my word, but put them both together and create something new and unique. And I thought that was so great. But he's talking about the essence of an actor and this thing that they have. Because and you need to be specific so that you can start to break in, right? So that people think of you right away. Because if you're too generic, that's not going to happen. I always say my personal goal, in town is, can I build the type of relationship with as many casting directors as possible that when they get a script and they read it for the very first time and they're reading this character, they go, oh, you know what, Blair might be interesting here, right? I want to pop into their head right there before the breakdown, before the submissions, as they're reading the script. Now,
yeah, and that doesn't happen when you give them 10 different headshots that are 10 different stories that are those kinds of things. Because now it's not, but now in that scenario, it's not Blair would be interesting here. It's, I don't know what version of Blair I'm going to get on the day, and why would I even run the risk that I'm going to look bad in front of my bosses in a scenario like that?
I don't even think they're going to think of me, because think how many actors they're exposed to, and how many actors that submit and postcards and all the marketing and all. You need something that is going to stick. That is something that is going to hook in their brain.
Yeah, we would like to sell you on our new brand of soda. It's called It Tastes Like Whatever You Want. And what do you want it to taste like? We're going to try to, sure, it tastes like that. Yeah, whatever you want.
Yeah.
There's a weird line in here when you walk into the room for an audition. So you get called in for an audition. It's not your story, right? So you have been given lines, that you've been given a role that you need to play. And so you have to kind of take you and marry that with the story. And so many people lose track of the fact that an audition is an opportunity for you to create in a small, in a little environment, for you to create a story that is unique to you. No one else is going to give the same audition that you give. And so you have that opportunity to come in and say, this is me, in a thankful way, right? Because, they're showing you an opportunity. I don't want people coming in being like, screw the rest of the people, like, be professional, right? But you wear your confidence into the room, that you know who you are, you know how you tell the stories, and this is your chance to offer this story in a way that is unique, that no one else is going to be able to do. And how much more freeing is that? You walk into the room, well, not me, but Blair walks into the room and everybody looks exactly like Blair. And, you're like, oh, okay, well, I'd hire that guy. I'd hire that guy. That one's better looking than me, whatever. Your comparison point in an audition is not the other people. Your comparison point in an audition is you. It's the best version of you. It's you. Your goal in an audition is to do the best thing that you can do with this script, with the lines that you've been given to read, with the amount of time that you've been given to prepare for it. Your goal is to do the best version of that. When you walk out, you can say, did I do what I set out to do? And if so, head held high, off you go.
I spent so many years, and I still do it. It's a habit now. And I fight it every time. And on good days, I win. Other days, it's old habits. But so many years trying to please the casting director. I hope I do this right. I hope I do it. I hope I don't get it wrong. Because you have that, like, I call it good student disease, right? I want to get an A on the test, because you have this weird mentality that if you are the best audition, if you get 100%. Then you win the job. And that's not at all how it works, because there is no right. And there are going to be several people who are going to give fantastic reads, and they're all going to be different. And then the producers and directors are going to decide, wow, I like that version, but they remind me of my ex, and I don't want to deal with them every day, so forget it. And this person was fantastic, but they're too tall because the Star's contract says nobody can be over 5'10". So, okay, so how about this person? Yeah, that was good. But what if we took this other person and we put it with this person, and wouldn't they be great in the room? So you can't control any of that stuff, right? So that's the thing that I've been telling myself now, is your job at an audition is not to go in and do it right or please anybody. Your job is to go in, as Brian said, thankful, appreciate the opportunity. And now let me offer you my story, because it's unique to me. Nobody else can do. And that's the mantra that I was talking about, is I always remind myself, it is their script, but it's my story. And so now let me go tell my story. That's why I'm an actor. Let me tell my story the way I want to tell it. And the worst that's going to happen is you're going to tell your story and it's going to be real and authentic, and you're going to leave and they're going to go, crap, I wish I could use that. That was fantastic. What else do we have for them? Or remind me to bring them back in next week. And now all of a sudden, now you're marketing. Now an audition is just not an audition anymore. Now an audition is, hey, get to know me better as a storyteller. This is me. This is how I tell stories. And it's got a quirk or an energy or a thing that's me. And man, I love this script. And if you can use it, great. And if you can't, okay, we'll work together in the future. And you have created an impression of yourself as a storyteller. And, your headshot is an impression, and everything you send is another. And, how your manager or agent pitches you is another. And even, how you respond to some casting director's, Instagram Q&A, that's all impressions of you. And when you walk in the room, that's another one. And over time, and that's why marketing is tough, because it takes forever. Over time, you are hopefully building the kind of relationship by being specific, knowing who you are, that eventually a casting director goes, oh, wait a minute. Remember that person who was in last week who did that thing, and we saw their showcase a year ago and they were kind of weird and quirky? Wouldn't they be interesting in this role? Right? And now you're building relationships. Now you're approaching this coming from a place of service as an artist, as somebody who has a voice, who wants to lend it to stories, and finding people in town who tell the same stories. And ultimately, we didn't know this when we built it. We had no idea. CastingAbout, again, was just, I needed a place to put all the casting directors I knew. I needed like a way to organize it. But what we realized was ultimately this became a really fun tool where you get to research all the casting directors in town and figure out what kind of storytellers they are. What projects are they hired for? Let me look at their, we list everything they're currently casting, and then archived, it lists everything they've done in the last 10 years. So like, wait a minute, this casting director, every tone of every show is the same that they do. So, oh, by the way, I've used that in auditions. Like if I'm going to go in and read for somebody that I haven't met, I'll look at their history and look at the tone of all of their projects, because that's probably kind of tone-ish how I want to approach this project, right? Why not? So you spend the time looking at these casting directors and what they do, and then look at we list the social media links. So, look at social media, not necessarily to reach out, but to figure out who are these people, as artists, as storytellers. And now, if I'm coming from a place of service, I know a little bit more about them when I'm going in the room. I can offer something that is more helpful to them. I can start to target people like, oh my God, they tell the same exact story that I tell. Like we were born to work on the same scripts. So I want to get to know them. This other casting director, love their work. They don't need me. They're doing their thing, and there's other people in town who can tell their stories better than I can. So, okay, fine. You start to build this target list, of people who need you to tell their stories. And I think, and that ultimately is what marketing is. It's not sending out the 300 postcards to everybody. It is being specific about who you are, then finding the people in town who tell those same stories and building those relationships. And had I done that, from the beginning, I think it would have been a different career.
I think sorry, Peggy, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I think there's a step in there. We've talked about it, but as long as we're kind of lining everything up, figure out who you are comes first, right? And then and I just want to say this, I love that you're doing the headshot strategist. I think it's awesome because, first of all, your headshots are almost certainly going to be the first thing that a casting director sees. If they don't know you, it's likely to be the first thing they see. It's in that way, it's the sort of the front cover of your marketing materials. And so because of that, it is probably among, if not the most important thing that you do. And you shouldn't do it casually. You shouldn't, I hesitate to say have your friend take your picture in the wall outside your apartment, because maybe that works. But I think there are certain things that as an actor you should invest in because it's a legitimate business expense. And getting a headshot that is compelling, and I mean that in terms of everything we've been talking about, compelling in terms of what story do I tell? This headshot needs to match that story that I tell in a way that implies future things. It's a window into what you are capable of. And And so contact you. So you guys contact Peggy. Go through the headshot strategist thing, because I think it's genius. I think it's
Yay,
absolutely
free
genius.
commercial.
Well,
It is what you need.
yeah, and I'll back that up, and you know, free commercial for you, Peggy, because I think what you do is great. But just in all fairness, I will say this: I think you are a storyteller as much as anybody else. You tell your stories, you know, you capture stories through the lens, and that pre-interview you do is so incredibly important, because I went to my first photographers way back at the beginning. Well, they're professional photographer. They know how to take pictures. Good enough, right?
Yep.
What I realized was when I went and interviewed photographers, I started to talk story. And this is a story I want to tell through the lens. And some photographers would say, yeah, I can do that. And other photographers will go, ooh, I see that with you. You know what we could do? If we did like this kind of approach, we can enhance that story. And maybe if we did, and now we're talking story. And I would say there may be some actors who come and they start talking story, and the stories don't match, and maybe they're not for you. You know, maybe you're not the right one.
Absolutely. A relationship between an actor and a photographer is very, very intimate. I mean, we're back there, you're opening yourself up and letting me capture real deep emotions, and you're giving me a lot of money and trusting me to get you effective headshots. And I've always said that one of the reasons I do this podcast is because if you can't hang out with me for an hour, you're not going to want to be stuck in the studio with me. I'm not for everyone, and I know that.
Sure, but the concept.
And on the flip side, there are a lot of people that I don't want to be stuck with back there. And so that's why I'm like, you know, we're going to talk first, because I've had people in the studio that come in with bad attitudes and, you know, all this, and it's like pulling nails for me to do anything. And then they complain about everything. And guess what? They're the ones that are going to give me a bad review. I don't want that.
Yeah,
right. I don't want all that stress.
Right.
For sure. And, you know, so to come back around to the whole thing, so start with Peggy, because she's going to help you figure out who you are and make sure that you know who you are. And if you don't have that, you're in trouble from the get-go. But once you've got, you know, once you've dealt with the headshot situation, it doesn't stop there. You have other things in your marketing materials. There's an actor resume that you're going to put up on your Actors Access profile, or your profile in any of the other services that you might use. And that resume tells a story, and that story should be exactly in the same line as everything else. And you're going to put clips up on your profile, film clips of showing that, you know, the kind of work that you do. And those are important, but you know, the same problem if you've got your clips that are a whole wide variety of things. Now you're watering down your message again. So part of this thing is, once we start with figure out who you are, then from the headshot to the resume to the marketing materials to maybe whatever workshops you choose to do, and then as Blair was just talking about, finding the casting directors who tell the same story that you tell. You see how we're lining everything up. So the idea here is all of your choices are based on this same thing. And let me just go back for a second. If you're a well-trained actor, if you're somebody who's gone through a really broad training where they taught you how to do everything from musical theater to drama to comedy to kabuki theater, so you've got the ability to do all that stuff. That is awesome. Congratulations. Great. Pick one thing, right? It doesn't mean you can't do the other stuff. Pick one thing that you love, that you feel strongly about, that you are able to do. Build your marketing around that one thing. Don't worry about the other stuff. It's still there. You can still do it, but start with something, and be specific and targeted and focused about this. This is what marketing departments in major businesses that are successful. This is what they do. They don't try to be everything to everybody all the time. They try to be a specific thing to a specific audience and to reach that audience in a way that is compelling. And that's what you want to do.
And then once and you've called it like the tip of the spear, Brian, which is, you know, once you're in, then that starts to grow, you know, that experience. People say, oh, well, that was really good, and now maybe we could use this in a different way. And, you know, let's bring them back because they do a different thing. And I think,
I like that tip of the spear because
Mhm.
that's being
yeah,
specific and then opening it up broadly. I like that. I'm
Yeah, I
still in
mean,
that. I'll
you
give you
you're
credit for the first
you
time
are
I did.
not going to get your first break
that's
in this
Brian's.
business on a long shot, on a thing that's not in your wheelhouse. You're not going to do, because there are too many actors who are exactly in that wheelhouse.
Yeah.
And so where you're gonna get your first break in this business is doing that thing, that literally the thing that you are worried about being typecast at. That's what's going to get you your break in this business. So lean into it. And build all of your materials around that. So when you're working with the headshot photographer, as Blair said, you can come in and say, this is the story that I want to tell, and the photographer may ask you some questions about what do you mean by that, and how are we going to work with that, and so on. But that's part of telling the story. That is an awesome sort of feedback loop that Peggy, you've built with so that you can help actors to kind of refine that whole thing. They can then take that information and bring it back to how do I select the rest of my marketing materials, the other things that I do. If you have a presence on social media that is an actor presence on social media, not just pictures of you and your dog, right? But if you have an actor presence on social media, everything you do can be informed by what is my brand, what is the story that I tell best, how do I, it helps you to decide what do I put up on social media, because now you have a target, you have something you're aiming for. And it's so much easier to kind of figure that out instead of just throwing stuff up and hoping for the best.
I wanted to circle back around to something that Blair mentioned, and Brian, you said put a pin in it, so I'm pulling that pin out.
Bring the pin.
And,
yes.
And you mentioned, you're there to tell someone else's, to be a part of. And I think that we as people in general get this idea that if we're going to network, if we're going to a networking event, it's about, hey, look at me, help me, use me, buy, and really, I think I know you guys believe in this as well. Networking is about how can I help you?
Yep.
And as an actor, if you're looking at this, how can I help you? Casting directors, they have a problem. They need to cast this project. They, here, I'm the answer to your problem. Let me help you. Whatever area it is that you're in, be the answer to the problem. Be the person. If it's not you, hey, you know what? I'm probably not a fit here, but have you met so-and-so? Like, be that person. And that's how you're going to make an impact and build relationships, not just be seen, but build strong relationships in the industry.
Yeah,
I feel like that's really important. And I
It's
wanted
so
to, you
important.
mentioned it, I wanted to kind of nail that in a little bit.
It is so important, and it's tricky because even actors with the best intention, like I want to help a casting director, they go in, it's like, well, I want to do it right. I want to give them exactly what they need, and you can have good intentions that way. But a casting director is not looking for the one right thing, right? What they're looking for is help me tell this story, right? And that's why they're bringing you in, and they're bringing multiple people in because everyone's going to tell a slightly different story. It's same script, same costume, same blocking, everything. It's still a slightly different story when different people do it. There's all the famous stories about Hollywood movies being recast, right? Because they fire an actor and they bring in another actor, same set, same costume, same lines, and it's a totally different story, different vibe. And so yes, go in there to help a casting director. But the best way to do that is to offer them your most authentic story. Be real to you. That's what they need. So when you go in and say, hey, okay, so yeah, it's a shift from yourself. Like, I hope I get this. I hope I get the job. I hope everyone says I'm great. Shift that. Be like, no. Let's come from a place of service. Let me offer the most real, authentic story I can offer to them. And if they can't use it, I can't control that. That's okay. That's the business. But the actors who go in and do something kind of generic that they can't use will be forgotten. The ones who go in and deliver something real and authentic with a distinct point of view, a voice, an artistic voice, then when those can't be used, they'll be remembered. They'll be like, those are the ones like, oh, that was amazing. I wish I could use it. I want to use that again. Bring them back next week. Let me find something. Sometimes, we've all heard the stories about you go in, you read, and they go, you know what? Before you go, can you go in the hallway and look over this part?
Right.
It's because they saw a thing. They saw something that sparked with another character, and they're looking to tell maybe that story. So sure, because now let me bring my voice to that character. So again, that place of service, right? And what can I offer? And I love that idea that if you can have the energy and the point of view of gratitude, thanks for this offer, or thanks for this opportunity, and service. Let me offer you my story. Thanks so much. See you later.
Yeah.
First of all, it's just mentally so much more fun and healthier. But I think it goes a long, long way, because ultimately auditions are marketing, networking opportunities. You are learning about the casting director, and they are learning about you. And Brian has said this a bunch, that we all come at networking and relationship building backwards, because we always think about, okay, what can I get out of this? What's in it for me? And to approach these things the other way around, how can I help you, is so much more powerful.
Yeah, that's why a lot of people don't want to do networking. That's why they don't want to do marketing. It's why they don't spend time in relationships. A lot of times it feels really sort of leechy, right? It feels like it's me, and I'm gonna. You're asking me to go out and find a bunch of people, find a network of people that I can somehow grab onto their leg and let them drag me through the door somehow. Like that. A, that's not fun. It's B, the power dynamic is really, really weird. C, nobody wants to have some dude hanging off their leg while they're trying to, so like. There's so much a better way to do this. And when you turn it around and you look at relationships in terms of how can I help you? What can I do to help you? What can I do to make you look good in front of your boss? What can I do to make this production better than it was before? What can I do to make you enjoy this moment in your day? To have, so how can I in some way make this audition or this opportunity to connect, have you be like, that was fun for a moment, that was fun. That when you come into relationships from that standpoint, with a perspective of service, a perspective of how can I help, it's so much easier to find your way in this, because now it's not leechy. Now you're giving people gifts. And I don't literally mean gifts. I'm sorry. I have to be really cautious with this stuff, because somebody's like, oh, glitter, the glitter bomb. It's time for it. Yes. I've been waiting for somebody to tell me it's okay to do it. And Brian just did. But Brian did not. What you're giving them is so much better than the glitter bomb. It's a virtual.
Glitter Bomb is my rapper name, by the way.
Yes, and I buy that album.
I think this is a whole new podcast here. I think we'll do a follow-up with Glitter Bomb.
Glitter Bomb, the Glitter Bomb podcast. But when you come in, and the hardest part about this is for people, when you turn relationships around and when you start saying, how can I help you? When you start from there, the first thing you have to do is you have to understand the other person, right? I can't get to how can I help you if I'm not paying any attention to who are you, what are your needs, what are the things that make you happy, what are the things that work for you, whatever. So if you want to build relationships in this industry, learn about other people. Start by listening. Go on social media and don't just jump in with me. Go on social media and start by listening. Start by paying attention to what do people care about.
Wait, what? No, we don't do that in this country. That's not the American way. What are you talking about?
And look, there'll be plenty of time for me later. There's a thing when in the old days, right? You would package up your 8x10 headshot in a window envelope, which you do not do this anymore. So I'm not, but this was the old days, right? And you would mail it to a casting director's office, and maybe you'd write a cover letter, maybe you wouldn't write a cover letter, but that cover letter, if you wrote it, was all about you, what you've done, what you are capable of doing, what your training might have been, whatever. It was 100%. The message was me. What you're telling the casting director is, hey, I don't care who you are. I don't care whether you're busy or not busy. Stop what you're doing and pay attention to this guy.
Subtext, dear stranger, give me a job. Do things for me.
And from a casting director perspective, why?
Yeah.
Why should
yeah.
I? Especially because you are now leechy. You've now identified yourself as a leechy person who's going to be a problem for me. Why should I do that? If your messaging is, we can help each other, I can help this story. I am a professional who is well trained, who tells these kinds of stories, and I think that I can help. Now your messaging is not, these are my needs. Now your messaging is, I think that I can help with your needs. And it's a better way to build a strategy.
We're not good at marketing casting about, as we talked about. It's just dumb. We don't. I told my wife one time, she's like, well, you got this, business now, and what are you doing to market? And I said, well, if you build it, they will come. And her head exploded, but so I'm not naturally good at it, but I'm going to force myself. If I could just plug CastingAbout a little bit, because there's stuff that I'm
about to say. I really wanted to talk about CastingAbout because I know that it's a powerful tool. So I want you to, everything that we talked about, CastingAbout can help you as an actor do all those things. So I want you to plug it. And then I have some questions because I let a few people know that you guys were coming on. So I have some questions.
Awesome.
The viewer questions. We got to get to that.
Let's talk about CastingAbout.
Basically, the blanket answer is it's Brian's fault.
Yep.
I just go with that usually.
And I would like to apologize to every one of you personally.
All right. So what I wanted, over the years, it's grown and evolved, and there's a couple things I'm really proud of that I use, and I know some people do, and I think more people probably should. This idea of, okay, let me be of service to people. Let me figure out who in town is telling my story and who can. There's certain casting directors, I said, who don't really need me. I know there's other actors who can tell their story better than I can. Okay, so how to keep track of all this? And there's two things that I love in CastingAbout is, one, we've got a notes feature. So for every project, and we track, by the way, for anyone who hasn't seen it, we track every union project that is casting in LA, New York, and now Vancouver and Toronto as of a month ago. We're very excited about that. So, it's SAG-AFTRA here, it's SAG-AFTRA and Equity in New York, and it is ACTRA and UBCP, I always say it wrong, in Vancouver and Toronto. But it's all the union projects, and then the full casting staff, so casting director, associate, and assistant. So yes, it's a lot of projects, but more importantly, it's a lot of names. It's every casting director, associate, and assistant. And especially if you're coming up, you want to be building relationships with other people coming up in the casting world. So usually that's the assistants or associates. And associates a lot of times are the people that you're reading with in the room, especially if you're doing a co-star part or, some of the earlier parts you do, it'll be with the associates. So build relationships with those people. So for every project and every person, there's a notes section. You can leave your own private date stamped notes. You hit a note, you hit enter, it puts today's date on it. You can have unlimited notes. They're just for you, not the public. No, the public's not going to see them. And now you have a running history of your relationship with this person or this project. I auditioned, I wore my lucky shirt, and I got a call back, and I wore the same shirt, and I did a slightly different take, whatever it is. But again, I think on the people, it's even more important. I watched their podcast, and I read their book. And then I sent them a postcard, and then I responded to some Twitter poll they did. And then, whatever it is over time, because marketing can literally take years. I mean, so, oh my gosh, it's been 8 months since I last had contact with this person, but I see from my notes that we talked about, puppies because they had a new puppy. So, good to know.
Yeah. Yeah, and I love that. I think the notes are great. We've had the notes since almost day one in the system. I think those are absolutely something actors could and should use more to kind of keep track of this journey that they have, this sort of relationship journey that they have with a person. So I 100% that. But then also we have added in the feature to
you just yes-anded me again, didn't you?
I did. I yes-anded you.
Yes. Yes.
And improv before we hit record, so we decided the whole show was going to be yes and.
We're going to improv this thing. It's so all your questions are going to be improv related kinds of questions. we added the feature in to allow you to add tags. So tags allow you to create little groups, right? So we give you a couple tags to start with, my favorites and things like that. But you can create your own tags if you want to, and so it lets you create these little groups. And so you can create your target list of casting directors, because CastingAbout, when you log in, it's got all the projects and all the people in a really large region. It is a daunting list of people. And Blair and Brian just said, don't market to everybody all the time. That's bad marketing. So now what do? Well, you use the tags to create your target list based on the research you do. Who am I? Who are the people who tell the same stories that I tell? I'm just going to add the tags to each of those people. So now I have this little target list, and then I'll just pull up my target list and look down that list and see who do I need to stay in contact with. And that might be mailing postcards, which is sort of an old-fashioned way of doing things, but some actors are still doing that. You can get the mailing addresses for people who are accepting mails on CastingAbout, so it works for that. But it might also be pulling up their social media and sort of following them. You can get that on CastingAbout. We track all of that stuff for them so that you can find, for this person that's on my target list, I'm going to go look at their Instagram feed, see if they're doing lives, if they're doing any kind of anything like that. Or depending on what market you're living in, there may be workshops available or other kinds of opportunities where you can kind of meet with them and connect with them and so on. But instead of trying to wrap your arms around the entire industry, use the tag feature to narrow down to a list of, let's start with 20, maybe 30 casting directors that are in your lane. They are telling the same story that you're telling, and then find opportunities to sort of repeatedly connect with them and repeatedly remind them that you are still in this industry and that you're taking new classes, or that you've just booked a role, or that congratulate them. Even better yet, when you're talking about being of service, congratulate them on their Ardios award, or they're picking up a new show, or any of those kinds of things that are an opportunity for you to have a professional relationship with somebody, to just say, I'm here when the time is right. We're going to work together because we're doing the same stuff.
Yes, and I have a question related specifically to tags. What are some of the top users you've seen? What are some of the top, because you can put your own custom tags.
Yeah.
And then the follow-up to that is, what should they be using? What should actors be using these tags for? Because, they are very, very useful. So what are you seeing people using them for, and what aren't you seeing that you're like, why aren't you using it this way?
Definitely the target list, right? So identifying, and for me, I break it up. I've got like the people that have booked me. I've got a booked me tag because, I want to follow their career. That's important to me. And so I can filter by the booked me tag, and everybody else goes away. Here's just the casting directors who have booked me. So, because I want to follow their career, it's important, right? Then I have the target list of people that haven't booked me, but I want to get to know better. So let me now switch the filter to the target list so I can focus on them a little bit. If I've read for somebody, I've met them, so I've done that because that's a slightly different group for me. The one that I've been using lately that I really love is actually a tag I put on projects, not on people, because, with limited time and the kids and, I'm just tired all the time. If I do get a little window where I can watch one of the 9,000 new shows on, that are available to us right now, I want to do my homework. I want to be aware. So now if there's a project I hear about, or one that I find as I'm scrolling through CastingAbout and I'm looking at all the new shows, I put a watch this tag, or, watch this soon tag, whatever you want to call it. I'll drop that on a show. And then if I get a free half hour or hour, I wish, then, I just pull up my watch this list, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's the show I need to check out now. It's a way that I keep track for my homework on what I need to stay in, on top of.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea.
I've seen holiday card lists, I've seen, gift lists, like these are the people I want to send gifts to. People are using it in lots of different ways, but it should be tailored to how you are approaching and what your different groups of people are that you need to track.
So is it common to send a casting a gift, like if they booked you on a show, or you've read for them several times, is it like a nice little, gift?
Yeah.
Is that something that is acceptable and,
Yes,
a
it is,
nice
and
gesture?
it is, and if it's done genuinely, right? I
Yeah.
think you don't need to send a thank you for every audition because they're doing their job and you're doing your job. That's just, you thank them in the room. Hey, thanks for calling me in. Appreciate it. You're good. Um, if you book it, thanks so much for this opportunity. This is wonderful. If they went out of their way, if they changed their schedule, if you had to reschedule, if they gave you coaching in the room, if they, whatever they did, then I think, yeah, again, you don't send a gift because you're supposed to send a gift. You send a gift for a reason because you genuinely want to thank this other human being for something they did for you and you were able to do for them. And so, yeah, I think there's a lot of empty gifts sometimes sent, because I have to, but not inappropriate at all. And when it's done genuinely, I think absolutely.
I think that that's kind of should be everyone's theme for life. Like when you do things out of genuine gratitude or just genuineness, then people know that. Like
Yeah.
humans have a real good bullshit detector, you know?
Yeah.
And it feels like, when you do something genuinely, it's received like, oh, wow, it could be a $5, Starbucks, but to actors, sometimes $5, that was maybe a huge sacrifice, and
Yeah.
they really wanted to show some appreciation,
Yeah.
and that comes across when it's done
And
in
then the
that.
gift card is nice, but I think the little note you send with it is more important.
I think so too.
Exactly.
I was just going to say, look, so a lot of actors are on a budget. I get that. I don't think you're going to be in trouble for not giving a gift. I don't think that a gift is something that you need to do at some level. I don't think there's any particular expectation. It's not going to harm relationships if you don't send a gift. But I'm a huge fan of thank you messages. I'm a huge fan of telling people that you appreciated the thing that they did that was important to you. That helped your career, that made a difference in your day. Even sometimes somebody will give you a good piece of advice. And so I thoroughly expect that we will get thank you messages from everybody listening to this
Not
podcast.
necessary. Not necessary.
Do not send us gifts. We do not need gifts. But actually,
We'll put your Cash App link in the
yeah,
bottom.
right in there. Yeah.
Right. Yes.
We accept Venmo, Zelle, Bitcoin, for sure. Bitcoin, Dogecoin.
Yes.
Yes.
Right.
No, we don't. People that you don't do it for the thank yous, but man, think of the times when somebody came to you and in a really genuine way said, God, I just appreciate this thing that you did. It's another opportunity for you to be a genuine human in an industry that sometimes doesn't feel like that. And I'm a big fan of that. Your threshold is going to be different depending on where you are in your career, right? You might send a thank you based on an audition if it was an audition that was really, really significant to you. It might not be significant to the casting director, right? That was just another audition for them. So, balancing some of those kinds of things. But I think you look for opportunities to connect on a personal level with people. I think you should look for that. And it's part of being a professional in this business is kind of making those kinds of connections. So I'm a big fan of the thank you note. As Blair said, yeah, if you want to do a gift, but the thank you note is the more important part of it. So spend time on that.
Peggy, I know you've got some more questions. I'm just looking at the clock. I want to be respectful of your time, and there's another meeting coming up for me here pretty soon. So,
Okay, so we'll do a lightning round, and I'll just ask a couple of questions. All right.
That's great.
With more projects casting and being shot out of Atlanta, what is the outlook
What's
for?
the plan?
What's the plan, guys?
It's
What's
a great question because we love hearing about Atlanta because we're hearing it more and more. We just launched Vancouver and Toronto, which allowed us to do some behind the scenes work, technically for handling different regions. So we're in a very good place to expand to other regions. And if people are saying Atlanta, then we would love to hear that more. Let us know, y'all, if Atlanta is something you need. We've heard it before, and it is a definite area of interest to us. We are leaning in that direction.
The other thing is actually an actors access question, and then that is about slates. Are slates important? I know a few years ago, you and I, we had this conversation and you were like, absolutely 100%. And I'm always telling my clients, like, you're here, let's just do a slate. It's like 8 seconds of you. Just do it. But lately, people are just like, nah, the slates don't mean anything. And I was like, I think they do. I'm going to check on this. So this is my question.
Sure.
It's still a thing, right? Like, because they're cool.
Absolutely. And I'm go ahead, Brian.
I don't think anybody is going to not get cast because they didn't have a slate, because they didn't include a slate. A slate is one more item in the toolkit that gives a casting director a little bit more opportunity to find out about you, to understand what your brand is, what the story you tell is. A well-done slate will help you. But not having one, I don't think is going to hurt you at all. Some casting directors really like them. Some casting directors just ignore them and don't use them. My opinion is, in the Actors Access system, you get, I believe, 2 for free. No, you get 1 for free.
Oh, two headshots, 1 slate shot for free.
1 slate shot, and for free. So I would 100% do that, because why not? But I would absolutely do it on brand. And again, it comes all the way back around to what we talked about. What story do you tell? That needs to be in the slate, in the photos, in everything you do. And so it should match the tone, the style, the story you tell. It should match. You know, we like to say that you need 2 headshots. That 2 headshots is all you need to get a career in this business. And so for the $5, I think that it costs for a second slate shot, I think I would probably do the second one. It's not the most crucial thing, but it's also not the most expensive thing. So
it used to be in the algorithm, there was a thing where if you had your slate, your headshot, your resume, your reel, that the casting
and that is still the case.
That's still the case.
And that is still the case. Yeah. So it floats you up a little bit to the top. Now, every casting director we talk to says, we look through all those submissions, so it doesn't matter whether you're at the beginning or the end. And I get that. I'd kind of like to be at the beginning, right? Because they're fresher. So I would probably
irritated yet.
I'd probably do it for that. I'd probably do it for that reason as well. I will 100% say that having an established ongoing relationship with the casting director is going to be more important than any of that stuff. But sure, I would do slate. I would not do 50 slates for the 50 headshots that you put up there, but I would do 1 for sure, and I might do 2 because it's $5.
So I want to really make sure that I tell everyone, get a CastingAbout account. Like this is a game changer. Go into my playlist. You can see there was one time we sat here, you shared a screen and you kind of went through. I'm sure there's been updates and things have changed, but people can get a really good understanding all the ins and out of CastingAbout and why it's so important and why they should use it. But follow CastingAbout. CastingAbout is on Twitter. It is. Are you on Instagram?
We have an Instagram account. We don't actually do anything on Instagram. CastingAbout doesn't.
Twitter and Facebook right now is where you'll get the most information. And Twitter is actually really great because we pump out news about the casting world for free, just as a service, you know. So-and-so is now casting this project, or these 2 partners split up and now have their own offices, or this associate got promoted, or whatever it is. So at minimum, do that.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So there you have it. Make sure that you follow both Brian and Blair and CastingAbout. And, you know, this was really fun. I always love when you guys come on because it's today was just about marketing. I was like gonna pump CastingAbout, but this is just so informative. This is great. And right up
Peggy, thank you so much.
Yeah, I really appreciate it.
This is what gets me excited. I love talking about marketing for actors. So this was really fun for me. But anyway, so there's going to be links how to follow everyone in the description below. Make sure that you follow up, leave tons of comments, because you guys leave me comments and I'll get these guys back on and we'll just have a Q&A. Anyway, thank you so much. And thank you guys for watching. Make sure that you share, make sure that you follow. Now that we're a podcast, apparently following is important. It helps me help you. So wherever you're listening to this, I think I'm on all the major platforms. Just follow this podcast and share it with all your friends. But most importantly, have an amazing week. I'll see you next week.
Thanks so much, Peggy. Appreciate it.
Thank you guys so much. This has been really fun. I always love hanging out with you guys. Text or call today so that we can get you effective headshots that you can use as part of your marketing strategy. Headshots by Peggy, how can I help you?